So move on to dbus pass 1. Okay, that's done. So now we install it. Okay, so that's done. I did have some issues with dbus, although it didn't seem to affect anything. So, it might be a later build of dbus because this is pass 1. It needs to be installed again. So that may be a little bit later. If you're using a Dester install, it needs to be fixed afterwards. So we don't need to do that because we didn't do a Dester install. So generate the dbus UUID to avoid warnings when compiling some packages with the following command as the root user. Okay, so I need to do that. If using, as a root user it said, yes I did do that, that's right. If using elognd, create a symlink to one of the varlib dbus machine ID files. So we will be using elognd. So we need to create that. And now we do the 32-bit installation. Okay, and then install it. And that's complete. And move on to Linux PAM. So for the PAM module to work, this needs to be built into the kernel, so I can check that. I know I've got it because I've already done it, but I can show you how to check for it. You can either mount the boot and look at the config file there, or if you've still got the Linux sources, which I always recommend to keep, particularly for this reason, to add in a new bit of functionality, then you can check it from there. So we need to check for audit. It will be called config.audit. And as you can see, config audit is set to yes, so that means that is already enabled. So we use these commands to build PAM. And it says the test results are suitable PAM other configuration file must exist. So to do that we have to put this in. That's done. And now we can run Ninja test. And it says be sure the test produce no errors before continuing the installations. It's quite important because you can get locked out. So let's become root again. That was all good, all passed there. So for first time installation, remove the config file created earlier. does the root user install? Now remove an unneeded directory. And you can install some documentation and then rebuild for 32-bit. And install. That's done. Configuring it. So configuration information is placed in etc pamd. Here's a sample file. So that's just a sample. We can use that if we need to, but we've got some generic config files here for us to use. So we'll just copy all of this in and it will create them for us. And let's take a look at them. So there's 4 files there. Let's look at all of them. So there's the system account one, system auth, system pass, word, and system session. So they look all right. Now add a restrictive etc pam other. So this will overwrite the one we've created already for the testing. And that's the default PAM installation done. Oops. And now we rebuild Shadow to use PAM. Yeah, the installation commands shown below for installations where Linux PAM has been installed and Shadow is being reinstalled. And there's something there about if you're reinstalling Shadow for a version update. So we're not doing that. We can just follow the commands here to configure and compile Shadow. That's done. So now we'll install the package. There's no test suite. And we can reinstall the man pages. And there's lots of information about configuration. We need to add in some more configuration for Shadow here. So let's copy that. And then we need further PAM files to allow the system to use PAM so that we don't get shut out. And some miscellaneous ones that all share the same configuration. So warning, at this point you should do a simple test, see if Shadow is working as expected. Open another terminal and log in as root, and then run login and log in as another user. If you do not see any errors, then all is well and you should proceed with the rest of the configuration. If you did receive errors, stop now and double check the above configuration files manually. Any error is a sign of an error in the above procedure. Not the procedure above. You can also run the test suite from the Linux PAM package to assist you in determining the problem. If you cannot find and fix the error, you should recompile Shadow, add in the without libpam, switch to the configure command in the above instructions above. Also move the etc login defs orig backup file to the etc login defs. If you fail to do this and the errors remain, you'll be unable to log into your system. So important to test this. So log into another terminal as root. So I'm going to do this remotely to start off with, and then I'm going to actually do it on the console at the laptop. So SSH root at 192.168.0.101. So I've logged in as root, then it says run login and log in as another user. So Kernotex, and that's alright as well. Final thing I'm going to do is see if I can become root, and that's working still as well. So that looks okay. I'm going to do the same thing at the terminal, but as I say, it's not something you'll be able to see because obviously the terminal's not plugged in to the capture. So I'm going to log in as root. That's fine. Type login to log in as another user, Kernotex. That's fine, and I'll just check that I can do sudo again, and that's working as well. So that looks completely fine, and I can carry on now. So configuring login access. Instead of using etc login access file for controlling access to system, Linux PAM uses PAM access. So rename it to stop the system using that file, so it can use PAM instead. Instead of using the limits file, so again, rename the limits file so it's not used and the PAM one's used instead. And that's it. So let's remove shadow and compile elogin-d. So once again, kernel configuration, I'll check these are set just to be sure. So the first one, I notify user. Yep, that's set. Then I've got temp FS. And you can see that's set, and then temp FS POSIX ACL, that's also set, so that's fine. So I can proceed with the build. As I say, if you haven't got these set in your kernel, you'll need to stop now, really, I would say. Like I say, you might be able to carry on and do one compile at the end, but there's a chance that some things might have to be running to enable them to work correctly. That is a slight chance. I have to be running or available in the kernel. So it's probably best to stop, edit the kernel, recompile it, deploy it, and reboot. All good. Let's install that and carry on with the lib32-bit and configure and compile it. Okay, that's done. Now let's do a install. Okay, and configuration. You may wish to disable automatically killing user processes when the user logs out. So yeah, I tend to set this because sometimes you might want to log out and still have something running in the background. And we've got to modify the system session file. So that gets added in. Now continue on until you reach dbus 1.162, install it and follow the configuration instructions on that page to see if eLogin-D is working properly. Okay, I think that's the point where I had some problems, but it didn't seem to. Well, I didn't seem to have any problems with anything else. It was just the test that seemed to be the problem, so not quite sure what that was about. So duct tape. Build that. And install it. And I've just thought of something. I need to rebuild sudo because it can use PAM and it's not currently built to use PAM. Oh, or is it? I'm just looking at the build page. It says to put a without PAM to stop it using PAM, support when PAM is installed on the system. Yeah, I think I will install it because I don't know if it picks up PAM automatically or not. So remove that and I'll push D to GLFS. Oops. Go to GLFS, find sudo. Yes, it says without, so you can specify not to install sudo or install sudo without PAM if you've got PAM on the system, but I don't know if that implies that it knows if PAM's there when it runs. So what we'll do is run this configure and see if there's any mention of PAM in the configure, and if there is, then I know that I do need to build it because it's obviously looking for it to adjust how it builds itself. So let's see if there's anything in the summary here. Plugin options. PAM session support on. So I would say that it does need to be reinstalled because of that. You'll need to customize examples PAM conf and install it in etc PAM sudo. Right, and I presume that's part of, yes, it's part of this. Yeah, okay, so yeah, of course, so I haven't got any rules anyway for PAM, so obviously sudo's not using PAM at the moment, and that's why it's working, but I really should get it to use PAM, and I'll need to configure PAM to use sudo with this config file. So I've configured it, let's build it. That's done. Run the tests. That's all good. Let's just double check, didn't miss any failures. There wasn't any, so I'll install it now. Actually, what I'll do is use this su. That'll allow me to install it, because if I did sudo like that, it'll overwrite the existing one without PAM, put the new one with PAM in it, and then I won't be able to become root again directly from my unprivileged account, because the PAM config file's not there yet. So what I need to do now is to just check this is still there. That's still there, that's fine. So I'll copy this in. And now what I'm going to do is to redo the tests to see if I can still access the machine and log in and become root with sudo. So root 192. Let's get a bash prompt here. Uh, 192.101. Okay, root. So I've logged in okay. Type login to become another user. That's worked. And then sudo minus su minus, and that's worked as well. So that proves that's all still working fine. And I won't bother testing it from the terminal. That's good enough for me. So that's a little deviation. I just remembered that. So let's come back and tidy up sudo, and we can carry on with PCRE next. Oh right, I need to do popd. In fact, I just noticed PCRE2, that was one of the tools that was optional for wget, so I would suggest it might have been a good idea to install PCRE first before wget, and that might have given a wider coverage for wget. Yeah, I might reinstall wget just to see, well, again, run the config and see what effect it might have on the config, and then perhaps even run the tests to see if I can get some more passes. Might have been a better way to do it. So let's, and this hasn't got any dependencies itself, so that would make sense to install it earlier. Okay, that's done. So there's no test, just install it. And now rebuild it for 32-bit. Okay, and time to install that. And that's done. So that's PCRE done. So as I say, I'm just going to go back and take a look at wget to see how it installs. And see if the number of tests improves as well. So let's see what this does. There's no information there about setting a PCRE switch. Okay, yes, see it has found it now. So it's obviously going to use it, so I'm going to reinstall this. Although having said that, I can understand why they've deferred it till later, because it comes under the security part, although in itself it's not a security package, it's to do with regular expressions. So I'd suggest maybe it could be part of the networking as a dependency to install for wget. It may offer some extra functionality, I don't know, it may not do much at all, but it's obviously used by it, so it might be an idea to do that. So I'm going to rebuild this. And tests I'm expecting, although it may not be the case, may get some more passes. It doesn't actually say that PCRE2 is required for the test. It's got a comma and Valgrind. Well, comma and Valgrind aren't supposed to go together. No, it hasn't improved the test, but it definitely used it. So yeah, it's a bit ambiguous how to interpret that. Does it mean PCRE and Valgrind for the test suite, or PCRE, no comma, Valgrind for the test suite? I don't know. It's hard to interpret that. That's just one of the things about the English language. So I'll install that, and that's done. Okay, so we'll move on to now glib. Again, I think libxslt, but they're only for man pages, so it's maybe not that important. So let's run the patch. Yeah, I can't really remember if libxslt is part of this package or not. This installation. Another patch here. For controlling warnings, and we build it. So it looks like build it twice, is it? We do several builds by the looks of it. Right, let's build. So we're going to install that. It says to allow building object introspection. So let's do that. And now we build object introspection with these commands. And then we install that introspection data, and then we rebuild glib again to we've just installed object introspection. Now we're going to rebuild glib to create the introspection data. And then once again install that. And now we build the 32-bit version of glib. Okay, now we can install that. And that's complete. And move on to ICU. So that's all about upgrading, so we'll skip that. We're not doing that, we're installing a brand new version. And we'll start the build. Right, that's done. Now let's run some tests. Not sure how long these ones take. Okay, that's finished. All tests okay. That's good. Let's now install that one and build 32-bit. Right, so that's finished building. Let's rerun tests. As I say, unusually this has got tests for the 32-bit. Well, that seems to have failed for some reason. That's slightly worrying because I didn't have any problems on my test runs. So what I'm going to do is start from scratch and rebuild and have another go. Right, so that's built okay again. Let's run the tests again and see what happens this time. Okay, well that has aborted again. I'm not sure why this is happening. I might have to stop recording and go back and review what I've done, see if I've missed anything. Let's try, see if that makes any difference. No. Okay, well I've taken a look at that and I can't seem to work out why it's happening. I've run the tests with -k to carry on and everything else seems to run. I've also gone into code and fiddled with it to make it pass, and there are some errors or failures that come out at the end, even though the tests say that everything passed okay. So what I'm going to do is to go back in and I'm going to rerun this. So I'll start from the clean tree, rerun this, and when the make check fails, what I'm going to do is to edit the file that's causing the problem and just kid it into thinking, to passing basically. To me it looks wrong, but obviously it clearly can't be. I'm not a C or C++ program or whatever language it is. I don't even recognize it. So basically it's trying to put in a 32-bit, looks like an unsigned integer, into a 16-bit character array from what I can see. And unless the compiler can cast that, I don't know if it can. It just looks wrong. But yeah, it's just my ignorance really, because it obviously must work. It's concerning because it's testing large memory as the bit that's failing, so I'm hoping that's not an indication of a larger problem. But the fact it's the only real error is probably not too much to be concerned about. So I'm going to work around this and carry on and keep my fingers crossed that nothing else breaks in the same way. I honestly can't remember running these tests on ICU, and there's a slight chance that I missed them or skipped it, or maybe it did work, maybe something else I've done. I've looked through all the videos of what I've done with gaming Linux from scratch and I can't see anything that I've missed. So if it is something wrong that I've done, it's likely to be in the multilib, which kind of would tie up with why this bit's not working. So I'm really hoping I haven't done something or missed out something big there that's going to cause me other problems. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll run make check and let it run up to the point where it fails. Okay, so there's the failure. It looks like it is a C++ program. This ustrtest.cpp, so I presume it's unsigned string. So what I'm going to do now is to run make check with -k to see if there are any other failures. So there's that failure again, and the -k tells make to carry on trying to compile as much as possible. And this is just to check there's not going to be any other failures compiling these tests. Okay, so you can see it's finished compiling. There weren't any other errors, but it can't run the test because of that. So what I'm going to do now is to edit the offending program. So it's that ustrtest.cpp, and it was on line 2360. So it's this bit here. It seems to create a constant, I presume. I presume it's 32 bits long, and I presume that U is unsigned, and it's that long. And then it tries to create a character array that's that size, size of len, which is that big. And that's the bit the error fails. It highlights this closed square bracket. So what I did was just change this 32 to 16. Save that. Then if I rerun make check, it actually compiles. Obviously it does give me a warning, and carries on. I'll just take another look at that error again. Here it is, an error. So it carries on compiling some more stuff, but there aren't any errors, and then it starts actually running the tests. So it's going to take another couple of minutes. Okay, well there was actually a failure there, but it looks like it's a rounding error. So whether that's what the test is trying to look for, in fact they look identical, so I'm not sure. It wanted that number there, it's repeated it there. Is it saying it's got 99.99 back maybe? So it is a rounding error, but obviously it considers it to be a failure. So as I don't really know what's going on here, I can only accept that that is not acceptable. It could be part of what I've done, the fact that I've reduced the number of bits from 32 to 16, and that's exposed that and caused the error. Okay, so see, it does say all tests passed successfully here, but then it says the failing summary for Intel test, which is where that error was. And then it says errors Intel test, so some known issues there. I should return empty string to run suppressed tests. Use the -k option. Let's try that, -K. Oh, that's something else, is it? Right, I don't know what that means then. It's not an option to make. So yes, there's not a lot I can do about that. That's just rerunning the tests now. It's obviously going to produce the same results. The reason why I'm spending time on this is because of what it is. It's about testing what's called test large memory. It's to do with 32-bit to 16-bit conversion, so it is a little bit concerning and indicates something may be wrong. Like I say, I can't remember. I might have missed testing this, and that's why I don't recall having this problem. Otherwise, I probably would know whether it made any difference or not if I had tested it. If I would have made notes that it failed. So, and the fact that it's not something obscure, it's something that could be quite serious. That's why I'm a little bit concerned about it. But I'll carry on. I'll just let this finish again and just observe if anything else behaves differently to when I first tested this GLFS. Errors 18 in format. Okay, yeah, so as expected, it's all the same. So I'm going to install that as it is, and I'll have to keep an eye out for anything else unusual that happens, or anything different to what I observed when I was testing GLFS. So move on to libxml2. And compile it. Okay, so that's done, and we can install that now. Okay, and move on to building the 32-bit version. And install this. That's done. Tidy that up. And now shared MIME info. And if you wish to run the test suite, you must first extract the KDG MIME tarball into the current directory. So let's do that. Now build the package. And run Ninja test. Yeah, that's all okay. And Ninja install. And that's done. So now desktop file utils. So that's a warning about if you're upgrading, which we're not. So let's just start building. No test suite. So install it. So it just says that the cache file can be rebuilt with these commands, so we can run that now as the root user. And that can be run at any time when it's needed. And now we move on to Polkit. So we need to add a group and user for Polkit to use as the root. And then we can prepare the build and run the compile. Then as the root, install the package and remove some files that aren't needed, and that's done.